Hello there, my name is Craig Flett, and if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in learning how to play a musical instrument. But at the beginning, the thought of learning all of that musical theory can be very daunting. I felt exactly the same way when I started to learn guitar, and that's why I want to share with you the two principles of music theory that have gotten me to where I am now. So let's get into it. Now, hold up. Before we go any further, I just want to clarify, music theory is great. It allows for complexity and levels of creativity that you just can't get without it. However, if you're a beginner and you just want to get a feel for playing a musical instrument, you don't need a lot of theory. I personally have had years of fun playing either by myself or with friends in both public and private settings just with these two concepts. All you really need to know about music theory is the musical alphabet and chord progressions, what I like to call the chord ladder. We're going to use the piano for this because it's so much easier to visualize than on a guitar. Each one of these keys corresponds to one note. A note is a simple sound, which is a single frequency. On a guitar, each fret on each string is a note. String notes together and you get a melody. Put them in a specific structure and you get a chord. The musical alphabet uses letters to represent notes. These letters go from A to G. After G, the cycle repeats and goes back to A. The distance between two notes is called a half step. Two half steps is a whole step. If you are on a note and a half step up lands you on a black key, that key is known as a sharp. So if you are on a C and you go up a half step, you are now on a C sharp. If you start a note, in this case E, and go a half step down, then that note is a flat. So this is an E flat. Now you may have noticed something. A flat for one note is a sharp for another note. Notes can have two names. This is a D note. If we go a half step up, we are on D sharp. If a half step down, then D flat. This D flat is the same note as C sharp. Likewise, D sharp is the same as E flat. There are reasons to use one note name over the other, but you don't really need to know them. However, you do need to know which names can refer to which notes. On a guitar, if you need a sharp or a higher note, move up the neck. If flat or a lower note, then move down the neck. So to summarize, the musical alphabet uses the letters from A to G to represent different notes. A sharp note is a half step above a given note, and a flat note is a half step below a given note. Now let's get into chord progressions, or the chord ladder. When I was starting to play guitar and learning how to play different chords in a song, I visualized those different chords in a ladder. I have just recently realized that my beloved chord ladder is actually a legitimate musical theory concept called the circle of fifths. Now, don't worry about how complicated this looks. We're gonna break it down a little bit, but really it's just music science that means I'm right. I started learning guitar with these three chords: E, A, and D. These three chords are the major chords in the key of A. We'll talk about major chords and what they are in a minute, but for now just know that these three chords, E, A, and D, are the main chords in the key of A. Here's where the ladder comes in. Listen how when we play E to A, the A sounds higher. And when we play A to D, the D sounds higher. I think of each of these chords as a rung on a ladder. Since this is the key of A is the center chord. I think of E as one rung down and D as one rung up. I started with the key of A, then learned new chords to progress up the ladder. So the fourth chord I learned was a G, the fifth a C, and so on. Since I started with E, I think of it as the bottom rung of the ladder. Doubly so because going down from E requires chord shapes that are very difficult to make as a beginner. So it's a lot easier at the start to think of E as the bottom rung. Now, I do want to clarify that a chord on a higher rung is not necessarily a higher pitch. This just happens to be the case for the key of A. But thinking about all chords this way makes it easy to visualize how the chords relate to each other. A simple song like The Yellow Rose of Texas only needs 3 chords. So if we played it in the key of A, those chords would be E, A, and D. When I learn where to change chords in a song, I think of it in terms of the ladder. Do I go up one rung here or down one? Once I've learned that song, if I want to play it in the key of D, for instance, I just have to move everything up the ladder one rung. Once I'm in the key of D, I move up and down the ladder the same way I did when I was in the key of A. If I'm managing to explain this right, it may sound oversimplified. But once you get comfortable with the relation between chords in the ladder, it really is that easy. Going back to the key of A, remember how I mentioned that E, A, and D were the major chords in the key of A? There are also minor chords. This is an E major, and this is an E minor. Notice how the minor sounds sort of sad or maybe angry compared to the major chord. You can play most songs with just the 3 major chords and 1 primary minor. On the circle of fifths, the primary minor chord is in the inner circle of the slice where your key is. For instance, if we look at the key of G, the primary minor chord is E minor. In terms of the chord ladder, skip 1 down after the bottom rung. So if you're in the key of G, your bottom rung is D, you skip the next one down, which is the A, and then you play the E minor. Now, as we conclude this video, I do want to clarify one thing. The chord ladder is not the same as the musical alphabet. Going up 1 rung on the chord ladder is not the same as moving up 1 note in the musical alphabet. The chord ladder, or the circle of fifths, is the relationship between chords, which musically is not the same as the relationship between individual notes. If you don't like the chord ladder and it seems too complicated for you and it's actually easier for you to memorize and learn the circle of fifths, by all means go for it. That will work great for you. The circle of fifths is more detailed, but maybe for that very reason, the chord ladder was easier for me to learn and use practically. What I like most about the chord ladder is that if I learn a song in any given key, I can easily play it in any other key because I learned the chord placement based on its position in that chord ladder. Either way, just try to get used to how chords work together in a given key. If you can do that, you can play a song. And with practice, you'll be able to transpose or switch to different keys on the spot without very much difficulty. So I hope this video was helpful for you. I tried to keep it as short and concise as I possibly could, and I really think that this is all the music theory you really need to be able to play songs, to have fun playing an instrument in various different settings. And you certainly can move on beyond this and learn more, and you will see a benefit in your playing if you do that. But these simple concepts are actually very robust and can help you become a very competent musician. My name is Craig Flett. Thanks for watching.